she asked about the books they wrote. And she interviewed the authors on the books they wrote.
Wow, I am really pleased to introduce you to Kathy Pounds Graham. The name of her book, Hearts of Gold, Broken Bodies, Immeasurable Blessings. And this is the story of her two sons. And wait till you hear their story and what she did to fight for the rights of individuals with disabilities, and how her sons were just like anybody else. That's how she raised them, even though they had this rare genetic disorder. Kathy, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Kate, for the opportunity.
Tell me about writing this book. Why'd you write it?
Oh, well, it took me 3 years after they had passed that I was able to write it, and it was just studying about how amazing they were through their life, and having friends who knew them, and the things they shared with me, and just wanting to put the story out there to the world, to say no matter what your limitations are, no matter what you're going through, you can overcome it.
And that is the message from the book. There's no question about it. What happened with you? How did you know the kids were different? And tell us about the genetic disorder they had.
Okay, they were finally diagnosed. They were in their late 20s before we got a final diagnosis, but it's Pelias-Merzbacher disease, and it is a rare neurological disorder. It's demyelination of the sheath, and they, it's about 4 different stages of the disorder, and but they had no balance. Uh, they never walked. They commando crawl. They figured out how to do things themselves. But Kate, my first indication that there was something uh, not right was holding Shawn on my hip, like I'd seen all my other friends and sisters do, and he would not hold on to me, and his head was not stable. And at 6 months old, he still wasn't doing that. And the pediatrician we were going to just told me that I was a first time mom. Don't worry about it, that he was just going to, be a little slower. And I listened to that for a moment. And then the next time I went back, uh, he did it again. And I just got Shawn and I handed Shawn to him. And I said, "You hold my son. You've never even touched him. You hold my son and you tell me something's not wrong." And that's and I did ask him, I said, "You do me a referral to La Bonheur Children's Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee, or I'll find a way to do it myself."
Wow,
Uh,
and also what you were told is that Jason and Shawn wouldn't live very long, and of course they both lived into their 40s.
yes, ma'am. I was told they would never live to be teenagers. And Jason was 45, Shawn was 47. And Kate, they lived a marvelous life. They lived a wonderful life, and they enjoyed things. They were involved in sports. They were both in wheelchairs, but they participated in what they call Challenger League. It was softball for people who were in wheelchairs. But it wasn't just that. They loved to sit and watch people play sports. Even though they couldn't get out there and do it, they enjoyed it. They enjoyed life.
Yeah, you've told me some wonderful stories about them. We could even start with, when they were kids, and you mentioned that the commando crawling, that they just could pull their bodies up on the couch, and people didn't believe you, or the doctor didn't believe you.
That is correct. We had doctors visiting us all the time telling them what they were doing. And when I said they crawl up on the couch and they get themselves sitting in position, and he said, "That's impossible." And I said, "No." And I had taken pictures and I showed. And they didn't only do it with the couch, they would do it with the walls, in the house, particularly a closet. And but they figured out how they could get themselves to sit up. They would pull themselves up on the couch and get to the corner where they could balance themselves.
Wow. And you told me another great story I think that all of you listening should hear, which, by the way, you can get Hearts of Gold, Broken Bodies, Immeasurable Blessings, Kathy Pounds Graham's book that we're talking about on Amazon for a song, Kindle, hardcover, paperback, however you want to get it. But you told me about their toy chest, and you didn't know what happened with all their toys, but they surprised you, right?
Yes, ma'am. We had gotten them a toy chest for Christmas and some toys, and they never left their toys out and all over the place. They always crawled to the toy chest and would put their toys back in their toy chest. They also decided that the hall closet was going to be a good place for them to play, and they opened it, sliding door. They opened it, they moved everything out, and they would put their toys in that hall closet. One would sit at one side and one would sit at the other, and they would play.
Wow. Incredible, incredible, and even as adults, the things they did. You told me a wonderful story about Jason, who had a girlfriend, and that he broke up with the girlfriend, and there's a whole story just like any other teenager.
Yes, it was. And Kate, I was just, they surprised me every day. They surprised the workers every day. But, I'd watched him for a couple of months with her. I never interfered. I just, let him talk to me. But that day I had walked over to their home, and I knew, he was just sad. And I said, Jason, is something wrong? And he said, I broke up with Maria. And I said, okay, you want to talk about it? And he said, well, she was just using me. And it just blew my mind. I thought, now, where did you hear this from? And then I asked him, I said, well, how did you come to that conclusion? And he said, every time it was a holiday or any kind of special event, especially her birthday, he was getting her gifts and everything, and she had forgotten his gift. His gift for his birthday had just passed. And I asked him, I said, well, are you okay? And he said, I told her I needed a friend, not a girlfriend. Just, I was just totally amazed with the emotional maturity. It just, I never dreamed that coming out of his mouth, how he rationalized it. But they did that a lot. They
Yeah.
also they would also pull tricks on their caregivers, especially the ones that treated them like they were mentally retarded. They would just, if you treated them that way, they would let you get by with it, and then they would catch a time when they could show you how smart they were. And that happened with an RN, and it had been a thunderstorm that night, and I was at work, uh, and she called me and she told me, she said, Kathy, the TV is not coming on. And I asked her, I said, well, what's Shawn and Jason doing? She said, oh, they're just grinning and laughing. I said, okay. I said, Sydney, walk to the door that goes down the hall before you go out there and flip that switch. It's like a light switch. And she did. And I said, now turn the TV on. And she did. I said, now what's Shawn and Jason doing? She said, they are laughing at me. She said, they have just made a fool out of me. She said, instead of telling you, I should have asked them. I said, yes, ma'am, you should have.
Oh, I love that. And what's so cool too is because of your work too, they travel to Halifax and DC, Cleveland Indians practice, San Antonio. They were there in the Capitol because at one point you worked for a governor of Mississippi,
Yes, ma'am.
because you could really help. You could really help other people shine a light on disabilities and all of that. And what a wonderful thing. Tell the listeners about that.
Yeah. Well, I had graduated from Ole Miss, and I we happened to be at the Gum Tree Festival, and the gentleman running for governor was at that, and he got to know Jason particularly because Jason wanted the attention, and Ray was talking with me and not them, and Jason just happened to roll his power chair right up over Ray's foot to get his attention. So he had gotten, and Ray got was elected governor, and at that time the early intervention program was being the policies and procedures was being written to implement it in Mississippi. And I had been serving on the governor's interagency coordinating council, and Ray hired me on his staff to do the coordination of those services. So I was over the Governor's Interagency Coordinating Council, working with all of the agencies, in pulling agencies together to implement this program.
When we come back, we continue that conversation with Kathy Graham. Again, her book is Hearts of Gold, Broken Bodies, Immeasurable Blessings. Just listening to her story, absolutely amazing. And you'll find out more about what these two boys did to really affect change. Meet you on the flip.